It's got normally better penalty. Usually. I mean, it's not clear to me why you would.
I think we should make a request. Next time I want to be here, because we're going to have the students have brown field, so that's more students everywhere. The chairs, it's like they look like the chairs in the last place. So much usually have on
No, somebody left his own go first.
Okay. Oh, I have to, shoot.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Let's see, next thing. Meet a go is always fun too. The remote participants can hear us? Do we have anyone who will be our minutes scribe? I'm not minutes. Minutes is Ulrich said he would do that, right? Okay. Jabber scribe. Jabber scribe. All right. Thank you. Okay, so I don't think anyone listens to the audio stream except us, but I think if we put a note in the Jabber and just say that there's a buzz coming from the speakers, you know, put a prefix of audio engineer or something like that in the front and see if someone will come around and take a look at that for us. Okay, except for the buzz, it is just 4 o'clock here in Berlin. Can we get confirmation in the Jabber room that the folks in that are remote are hearing us? Unfortunately, it's a little challenging for me. I can't monitor everything with my computer being used for display. I can't even be looking in Jabber anything on the side. Wondering if any one of our remote participants can acknowledge that they can hear us.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So I'm Jim Galvin. This is the Registration Protocols Extensions Working Group. Thank you for being here, or see you next time. This is where you wanted to be. We do have, I see 6 people in MeetFO, which is totally awesome. And I guess we'll just get started on time here. We have our Jabber Scribe and Minute Scribe, so all very good. This is the usual note well. Basically, if you're here, your firstborn child belongs to us, and we'll let you know what we're going to do with it. So this is a new slide, which you hopefully have seen a few times before in various working groups. Right, we're trying to remind people or ask people in general, to do document reviews. I mean, not just in your own working group, but it's also important to be able to review documents in other working groups. And we'd very much appreciate if people would, take the time and opportunity to do that. Good cross fertilization and things like that. So all of that's a good thing. Want to make sure that that happens too. This is our agenda. We've pretty much done the welcome and introductions here, unless anybody has any questions or comments that they want to jump up and do. This particular structure for our agenda is pretty much the way it's been the last few meetings. So, we'll talk about our existing document status. We have a few documents for some presentation and a little discussion about them, and then any other business if there's anything left after that. So first question is always agenda bashing. Anybody want to add anything or say anything about our agenda? And if not, we will jump right in here. So the, okay, now it's not working. Oh, that's because I'm pushing the wrong button. Much better. Clicker works when you push the right button. So we've had a document published since the last meeting. Now is the time for applause. Please take an entire minute. Thanks to us, this is good news and a good thing. It's only one this time since the last meeting, but that's okay. We have several documents en route to publication. The first is just a quick pointer. We do have the key regulated document. It's kind of been hanging out there for a little while. It is waiting for an IPR claim update. So far, the working group has a preference, as I understand it, to wait until we get a solid notice up on the IETF website for that. So the document will just remain here until that happens, unless somebody wants to suggest that we have a discussion and move forward with this, regardless of the outstanding potential IPR claim. If we do want to have that discussion, okay.
I'm not saying that we should have the discussion, but the problem is that the IPR statement is not according to the BSP, and that is what should be done. I've been talking to Stephen Farrell just before this meeting, and it states license details will be provided later, and it should state something that is in, I think, BSP 9.7. Yeah, saying that either no licensing fees apply or licensing fee may apply, or yeah, there is a list in the BSP. So that's basically the issue. It is the BCP 9.7, I think. But it's the IPR intellectual right properties within IETF. It has a section on what should be there in the licensing details.
So for the remote participants, Scott Hollenbeck just took note of that BCP reference and the fact that that's, it doesn't, that the notice that's there on the IETF website doesn't conform to that. I mean, in general, I'll just say as chair, it's difficult, I mean, we certainly can't compel anyone to do anything in particular with respect to their IPR license. The only real opportunity that the working group has is to decide if it wants to move forward irrespective of what that IPR claim or license may or may not be. At the moment, as I understand consensus, the group is choosing to wait and see what that is. But if people want to change that position, that would be fine.
Just for the record, it is BCP 7.9.
Okay, BCP 7.9, thank you. Okay. I mean, if folks want to revisit, holding off making a decision here, I guess I would suggest that we take that discussion to the mailing list, primarily because there's more people there than there ever is in any one of these single rooms. And I think that IPR claims, I mean, speaking as chair, I think that they're a pretty important issue. And it would be a good discussion to have there to make sure that we have everyone engaged who needs to be and cares. So, okay. Next working document, we have our TMCH, the launch phase document, I'm sorry. The launch phase document is unfortunately tightly coupled with the TMCH functional spec document. And the TMCH functional spec document has an open issue with respect to matching rules, and there'll be some discussion opportunity later on the agenda when Gustavo is presenting. There's a normative reference in the launch phase document to the TMCH spec document. And because of that, the documents have to come together. You can't have a document with a downgraded reference in its normative references. So unfortunately, the documents are just coupled, and launch phase has to wait for the functional spec document. So documents, another working document is the RDAP status mapping document. We did a working group last call. I believe I was negligent and I did not actually declare the last call closed, but clearly the opportunity has passed. So this document is now ready to be submitted to the IESG for publication. I believe, Ulrich, you volunteered to be a document shepherd for this? What? No? Maybe not? You did now. You did now? Okay. Excellent. Glad to hear it. I did have a question mark there. So anyway, with that, we can move this along. I will send an official notice to the list just to close the loop so that it's clear that the last call is over and we can move it forward. And then we'll get Ulrich to follow it through the process with the IESG. Okay, thank you. And next we have the two reseller documents. These documents suffer a little bit, if you will, from the fact that they just haven't gotten much discussion on the mailing list and not much review. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Hopefully, if one wants to interpret silence as consent, you can say that that's okay. I would like to appeal to people to please at least make an indication that you had no objection on the mailing list to the documents. But go ahead. So we have a queue.
Yeah, there's somebody, Sean Turner, in the JavaScribe of Java Room. You can actually proceed with a down ref as long as you follow RFC 3967. This probably has to do with the launch phase.
Yeah, that has to do with the other document. I get that. I'm aware of that, Sean. So thank you for that. But these documents are coupled together. It's not a down reference in the sense that it's an unimportant reference. There's a phrase for it, right? There's a phrase for the fact that it's actually a dependent reference. And these things are tightly coupled together. So it matters to implementation that it be properly put together. Next.
Alex Mayo for regarding the reseller documents. Unfortunately, I haven't yet the time to review the last revision, but I'm scared by the silence. And that is mostly because those are like significant pieces of potential implementation effort. So I'm really wondering whether all the GTLD registry backend operators who would be required by ICANN potentially, where the whois change to implement this have actually looked at this, because the closer I look, the scarier it gets. Yeah.
Thank you. And you have Lin behind you. So
Sorry. I'm gonna review it and I'm gonna provide comments to the mailing list in like next week. Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you for volunteering. Make sure the minutes records that.
Yes, I appreciate it too. I hope more reviews will be posted on mailing list.
And who are you?
Lin Zhou, the author. And we hope more reviews and posted on the mailing list that we can. Until now, we have fixed all the issues submitted on the mailing list, and so no more further discussions. And we have updated the version 3 of this draft, and we hope and appreciate more reviews there. And if we can come to a consensus, I think maybe after discussion we can have a ready for the working group last call. And that's all. Thank you.
And oh, thank you for pointing that out. Okay, let's see. If I push the red button, so Francisco in the queue, you should be able to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please. Thank you.
Just to answer Alex's question, there is an upcoming GTLD policy in ICANN that will have the reseller, and to clarify, only the reseller name as an optional element in the whois and RDAP output. It's not mandatory, but it will be optional. This is for registries. Thank you.
Thank you, Francisco. Back to the queue.
This is Jody Calker. I've reviewed the document also, and as a registrar, it's scary to me also, because there's a lot of information that needs to be handed into the registry and has to be kept up to date. And not only that, but if every registry implements that, if you're offering all the GTLDs and CCTLDs, et cetera, you could be implementing, one registry or one reseller with 300 registries. And then when that needs to get updated, as Francisco said, only the reseller name, and it's optional. I guess my concern is if this becomes a requirement, and if this is the document that's going to be used for that, when only the name is going to be shown in the whois. And right now that's optional. So having to send all that information in, to create the reseller seems a little much.
So if I can suggest something from that. So what I hear you saying is you would like this specification to have a technical update where most of the information except the name is optional.
Yes.
And let me ask and suggest that we bring that particular comment to the mailing list so we can see, what others think. And I don't know if Lyndon wants to comment on that at the moment now, or you want to think about it and reply on list. You want to wait or comment now? Come to the mic if you want to say something, that's fine, or not. Okay. All right. Thank you. So thank you for that, Judy. All right. And okay, I see James coming up to the queue here. So go ahead, James.
Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay.
We can see you too.
Yeah. The thing is that I'm a co-author on these drafts, and a lot of this work was associated with what Francisco said about the need to be able to present the name in whois. But the question is from a technical perspective, is that would we only capture the name in the registry to satisfy that one requirement, or would you actually capture it in the data model the actual reseller information? right? Now, whether or not the requirement in who is or RDAP would change later on, or there would be other purposes for having the reseller information in the registry. So that's a question of whether or not this would be targeted only for that one requirement.
Alexander?
Alex Mayover. I'm a little bit scared of that extension because it's like a series of, I call them garbage in, garbage out extensions. They carry information that, from my perspective, don't have any semantic significance for the registry. They're not used operationally in any way. They're just burdening the registry with yet another chunk item that I need to collect from a registrar and that I need to output in some other channel. Especially because as a registry, I don't see, by definition, a registry doesn't have a relation to a reseller. Yeah, so a registrar does have a relation to a reseller, and oh, surprise, registrars run their own WHOIS and their own RDAP probably soon. So why is the reseller ID in the registry? That's probably not technically a question that fits into the IETF working group, but anyways. But if what Jim has been saying, then we should definitely see that we can reduce it to the absolute minimum of just transporting the reseller name, and try to not get into a position where it would be like, it's now an option to include the full reseller information. No, suddenly it's a requirement. Yeah.
Thank you. So in general, sort of the reaction that I'm hearing is being careful to not make the technical requirements be broader than the potential policy requirements, and to consider that in the document. And I see James in the queue. James, please go ahead.
I just want to respond to that. So maybe it makes sense just to make it optional for everything else and required for the name. But I would not like to see it just targeted for that specific requirement from a technical perspective.
Okay, so let me suggest that we take this discussion to the mailing list to finish it off. We'll let the one comment coming up from the Jabber room here. Go ahead.
Yeah, Antoine, with no head-on, perhaps reseller gets some authorization on registry data, like changing name service, for example.
Go ahead, Jody. Last comment.
Last comment is, what is the technical reason for having this?
Yeah, there is none. I mean, we need the ability to have the data transfer. So that's why the document exists. You want to have a standard way of moving the data around.
Well, would another extension be just to send in the reseller name with the domain create and call it good?
That certainly is an option, and that would be something to propose as a counter proposal to these documents that are here. Absolutely. Good. It sounds like we've motivated some discussion on the mailing list on these documents. I think that's outstanding. So yes, let's please take the discussion to the list where we can finish this off and get through this. I think that would be great. Okay. So it's not ready for working group last call. Clearly there are some things to talk about, and we'll take that to the list and we'll talk about them. Okay. Next one is the fees document, which is actually waiting for the author, for Gavin Brown, to submit the version of that is belongs to the working group. And then of course to ask the general question whether there's any more review. It's still listed as a Brown EPP fees.
Alex Milford, that's not true. There's actually a working group version of the document, but it's unchanged compared to the individual draft. And as far as I know, Gavin is working on a revision to revert that decision we made last time between options A, B, and C, where after some list discussion, we found out that we'd rather like to backtrack. So there is actually a working group revision of that, but it's like from the content, it's identical to the last revision that he submitted as an individual draft.
Right. Yeah. So two things. First, thank you for calling me out on the fact that I totally missed where that was. The reason why the 00 is actually the same as the last version that was submitted, though, is just sort of the way that we like to do things. I mean, it's not strictly required by the way the data tracker works, but as kind of a logical step, I've taken this approach with everybody who's been submitting documents. I like the idea that the 00 document represents the baseline that the working group had agreed to take on. And the fact that it's the same as the other one just feels like the right thing. And then we start making changes to it. So it just tracks the changes in that way. Okay, so in any case, we are still waiting on Gavin, but we're not waiting on him to do what it says on the slide. We're waiting on him to provide an updated document so that we can continue discussion and move forward. And then the last thing here is just if we have missed anything, just in case, just want to leave the door open. This might equally fall under any other business category, but it felt prudent just to sit here and see if anyone wanted to remind us about any particular document or any activity. And I'm not seeing anyone jumping to the mic, and no one is in the queue on Meet Echo. So moving on, this moves us to our document discussion period. And the first document that we're going to talk about is the extension for bundling registration. And Ying Kang, you're going to come up and do that. You can, well, give me a moment to get your presentation up, but you can work the clicker yourself, and you have to stand in the pink box.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jiankang Yao from Cynic. I introduce about EPP domain name mapping extension for bonding registration. So this is a use case. Currently, we have two kind of use cases. First is the label. Label is different, but TLD is same. For example, in China, for IDM, two versions. Under .cn, there are two versions. Domain names. One kind of the simplified Chinese domain names, and another of the traditional Chinese version of. For example, Tsinghua University has two versions. When register one, we will get two. Another use case is the label is same, but TLD is different. For example, is ONG and NGO example.NGO and example.ONG. So that means same label ending with different TLDs. In future, because more TLDs are put in root zone, so this case will be more popular. So there's requirements because bundle name normally share the following many parameters or attributes, maybe registrar ownership or registration expert state, registrant admin billing, or many domain status. So currently we register this bundle name as a one of a package. So one kind of package when one name registered or delayed created. So this action is run on the whole package. So we have a definition of two terms. First is register domain names. This is when the user or registrant register one domain names, subdate one domain names. So registry normally will produce according to the policy bundle domain names according to some policy. So we call the BDN. There's a register domain names for RDN. So we because EP there we should do some EP extension. So for this we have for this bundle name registration we will put see this bundle name as the whole package. When create one, when we create the whole package, we will create. When delete, the whole package will delete. When update all package, the whole package will be update. So when it gets info or check, so we'll do the operation to the whole package. So for example, we show is when when create domain names, when either RDN or BDN will be accepted, if the domain name is available, both BDN and RDN will be registered. So we will extension this EPP commands. So this show some examples. For example, we check, we will have this. There's a domain, two domain names. Will first the RDN is checked. Another is this is BDN. This we can some information. This also show Asian domain name. This product the domain name based on bundle name policy. So this is a create command. So when we create, this is a standard one domain names. For example, this domain names. We will create two domain names. Show here. There's this is RDN here and BDN here.
So in fairness to the remote participants, it's a little awkward to be pointing at the slides since they can't see you pointing.
So if any comments to the draft, please send to the authors of draft or mailing list. So for next slide, I like to introduce the related activity. So because currently we do the bundle domain name registration, so we also have like to do bundle name DNS resolution. So this month we have a buff. We just finished. I think is the result is very good. So maybe future in the next IETF we plan to have a meeting. So any questions?
Alex Mayo for Nick.at. I'm wondering.
Which one?
It doesn't matter. My question is not related to anything on the slides. I'm just wondering, for such a bundle, you're assuming that you're running the same name server for each of the names in the bundle. Is that correct?
Sorry.
You're running the same set of name servers for each of the domain names in the bundle.
Yes, in the same store. Yes.
Does this also work with the DNSSEC extension? So you can, how do you submit DS records for each individual domain name in the bundle?
So you mean run for the DNSSEC extension?
Yeah.
Currently, we just in the registration policy, when you register one, we give you another one. For example, we registered simplified Chinese domain name, Tsinghua University. We give the traditional version of Chinese domain name of Tsinghua University. Currently, it's just in registration level, but for the DNS level, you need DNSSEC. Maybe in the future we also have this related activity, buff or both. So we try to.
So what you're saying is you can't use DNSSEC for any of the bundled names.
Currently we do not deal with. Maybe in future, when we are both meeting a working group, maybe we can try to solve it.
Hi, Rich Merdinger with GoDaddy. I apologize, I've not read the draft yet, but in reading through the slides, it looks like you're suggesting bundles that are supported exclusively by registry policy. And I'm wondering if you've considered the concept of a registrar creating or defining bundles so that we can cobble together multiple names and create and sell them as packages of names that not necessarily by the same registry. And should we as an organization be thinking outside of a single registry providing bundles to domain names being able to be bundled? It makes it more complex, but it also has greater value and greater extensibility across suppliers.
Yeah, according to the current my understanding, in the registry level, we can easily control the policy. But if we include the registrar, maybe more complex than you said.
Yeah, I was going to wait till after Yonea-san.
Hey, Yoshiro Yonea. So this is my quick question is what happens if bundled name is not related to the registered domain name? So if those two names are bundled occasionally, so eventually, then the bundled name can be hijacked by the registrant. So hijack, yes. So
Please stand in the pink box.
my question is, what happened if the registered domain name and bundled domain name owner is not the same, but some domain name owner requires such bundled request?
Because all bundle name will assign to the same registrant. So the same registrant cannot hijack itself.
No, I said bundled name is a domain name of others. What happened?
Domain name of
Or others, for example.
So you mean the bundle name different?
Stand in front of the mic, please. Got it.
The bundle name belong to different registrants.
Yeah.
So for based on our registration, it is impossible the bundle domain name belong to the others, because for Chinese domain names we have a Chinese domain table and also have a policy. We have the whole package. Maybe in this package we produce the maybe 10 or hundreds of domain names. All these package domain names belong to the same, but if all do registration or delete or update is to the whole package, is you cannot just do part of them.
Okay, so it depends on the registry. So I suggest to write requirement, not the bundle name must be the same owner. And I think it could be written in the security consideration.
If it is does not belong to the same return, I think there will be hijack problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and Jody, yes, let me go to the queue behind you. So James Gould, you should be on. Go ahead, please.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, on the DNSSEC question, you may want to consider using the key data interface, because we looked at doing exactly the same thing with a share all model, like what's described in this draft. The only way I could see how to do it would be to use the key data interface. The other thing I want to point out, and I posted it on the chat, is a proprietary VeriSign extension called the Related Domain Extension, which supports client-specified relationships as well as server-defined relationships, whether or not you're talking about variants or related TLDs. So if there's interest in this extension from a broader set, then that's something that we could consider doing something about.
Okay, thank you, James.
This is Jody Calker. I was just asking about the create command. In the create command, it shows that you have to send in the bundled domain names in the extension. And I guess what I'm curious about is that if the registry knows what's going to be bundled together, why do those names have to be sent in on the create command in the extension? Why not just either one of them? Just using that on the create without the extension. Sure. If you bring up the create command, I think.
Yeah, this one?
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, please stand in the box behind the microphone.
If we can only speak over the mic. If you could go back to the create command on your slide.
This slide? First?
I believe there was a create command in there. Yeah, go one more down.
There it was. It's that one.
Right. In the create command, you have an extension that lists both of the, does it list, it lists the bundled domain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess what I'm asking is that if the registry knows what the bundled domains are supposed to be, why does the registrar need to send that in? Why should it even be on the extension?
Oh, because we have, you mean we have, maybe.
Use the microphone, please.
Okay. Okay. Let me check out the
Okay.
return to your list. Okay. Thank you.
Dmitry Kohmanik, we do have, I would say bundle, but similar things in our registry. So perhaps I'll provide some feedback later, but just to say, I haven't seen all of your command yet, but you should never ever assume the parallel registration in the DNS versus the creation. Yeah.
DNS creation.
Yeah, correct. So I mean, then the name server data like should never be bundled together with names. I suppose you know that already, but just to emphasize.
For DNS server, we like to to have maybe two names, maybe got the same DNS resolution.
That's what I say. You should never assume that because we actually do run several domains in UA in parallel, and people do want to have separate name server data or DNS data.
Yes.
Because you kind of assume from this slide it may be tied up.
Yeah. So some user like separate DNS solution, but some user like bundle DNS solution. So we like to produce some method for this kind of domain users. They not only register together and also get a DNS resolution together. Same.
Yeah, if they want to have the same, they just say it twice. But thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Rich Merdinger again. To speak to my colleague's comment regarding the explicit naming of both of the names if they're going to be bundled, if we start making assumptions that when you specify one name that you want to register, it will come along with registry-defined definitions of what will go with that and what that means, it loses the ability, unless you make them optional, it loses the ability to make it an explicit bundling set. And it's potentially possible that a registry may want to allow bundling of names but not require bundling of names. So I wouldn't want to simply obfuscate the details away. I'd like to, maybe there's an efficiency of having an optional parameter with specific behaviors, but be able to specify the specifics. And that could go to name servers. It could go to a number of pairing or non-paired or synchronized or unsynchronized characteristics.
Michael Holloway from Comlade. This sort of extends on what both of them have been talking about. There might be a situation where for a political reason or something like that, a registrar doesn't want to be associated with a variant, maybe a regional conflict or something like that. So in the draft, there should be consideration into being able to delete variations with still leaving the main domain intact, that sort of thing. Just a point. Thank you.
Currently, I think registry have more powerful policy impact. So registrar less strong policy about domain name registration. According to the Chinese domain names, we have a Chinese domain name cancel term allow the Chinese domain name register. We have a produce CDNC table for this line of bundling registration. So this working system we have already working for more than 10 years. I think the result of the performance is very good. The customer experience is also very good. So I think based on our more than 10 years of experience, this mechanism is great. Thank you.
If I can just add, I believe that's true for the Chinese situation, but there might be different situations when we're looking at bundling in other registries and that sort of thing. It might be a situation where the registry policy would suggest two domains would be bundled and a registrant would say, I don't want the second one associated to my name.
Yeah. If some registry is thinking that this kind of solution is good, you can use it. If it's not good, maybe you can choose another one. Thank you.
Mark Blanchet, something along those lines, which is, I'm getting concerned that we already have in the working group 2 documents related to bundling, the Sierra one and this one. And yeah, it's on the list. Then we have VeriSign that just, showed something, and there's IDN variants work in ICANN that may come with, another variation of bundling, which may need a different EPP extension. I don't know. But my point here is, are we ready for do this, given that there's various ways we can do bundling, and then we'll end up with, many variations of the same thing, which is not good for, I guess, the ecosystem. So I'm wondering if this is the right time to standardize this, or maybe, step back and make sure that we may have a more general solution that covers all this. An example of this is for Chinese, there's usually only traditional versus simplified, variants and labels, but in other language, maybe like expanding to 16 or 30 or 50 variants where, it has a bit of a difference in terms of how you do registration, including, some variants you don't want to allocate or use, and some you want to register, and all that kind of a process may not, work within this specific extension. So general question is, are we ready for standardizing this, or maybe we should look at a larger, more generic solution?
I think we have actually, we just explain based on the Chinese IDN use case. Actually, we also have another use case. Label is same, TLD is different. Thank you.
Okay, gonna need to close the queue after thing.
Nordisk Medieutvikling. I'm wondering if I am a EPP client and I don't know about bundling, and I connect to someone who has bundling, and I change the details of a domain name, and then I do a poll. Shouldn't I then get an update for the bundled domain name that it also has changed, since I need to know that?
So when you do some updating, delete or update, so you do any operation to one of those names, you actually do the same package. We see this whole package as a atomic unit. So you process and one them, actually you do the whole package.
I understand that I am actually changing both names, but I don't actually know that, since I am as a client that is not aware of bundling. But then you should probably fix that by when I do a poll, I get a message saying that the other domain name has also changed.
Because we see these domain names as a package. Yes. One change on another changes. But this changes mostly is the attributes or parameters. But for the domain name itself, it is not changed.
Oh, well, I'm just wondering exactly how did you solve the poll problem, because it's not in the draft.
Lin Kong from Cynic. So as one of the author of this draft, I want to make some explanation about the intent of this draft. So this draft want to focus on some use cases, not only .cn, but also other requirements that if the same registrant have more than one domain names, maybe 10 or maybe anyway finite domain names belongs to one registrant within one TLD registry. So this kind of domain names belongs to one registrant. So they will share the totally the same object in the EPP database. So we want to provide a mechanism that we can bundle these names. So we don't need to store the totally the same object for the bundled names. So these kind of bundled names could be a package, and they can share the same contact object. And if we want to update some kind of contact object, we can only update one copy. We don't need to update each the bundled domain names. So that's the initial purpose of this draft. So this draft only provide the mechanism. So any registries want to use this mechanism, they can based on this local policy to change. Maybe you can light your bundled domain names just belongs to the variants, or maybe you can just belongs to totally different purpose. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ning. I see James Gould in the queue here. I will give him the last word on this, although he is speaking after the queue was closed. But go ahead, James.
I apologize. No, I just wanted to propose that we cover the relationship from a larger problem, because there's 3 different drafts. There's many different forms of relationships, and I believe that it's best for us to discuss the types of relationships and how best to cover them via the protocol.
Okay, thank you, James. So once again, another one of those exciting opportunities here. Let me thank you, and I'll try to summarize here a little bit the action from this point for the working group. There are a number of documents that are later on in our list of things, but clearly there is a relationship to this concept of bundling and what does bundling mean. And I'm pleased and excited that we're now having this detailed discussion about this concept and what it is. I think we need to pull forward a couple of these documents that have been sitting latent in the background. The CIRA document is one, of course. There's the and this document, and we should discuss them together on the mailing list and have a discussion about what bundling means and decide to resolve these 2 documents, see if we can't bring them together or make it clear that these are 2 different things. So the action is to identify the set of documents that are clearly belong together and to open a discussion of them together to resolve what this working group wants to do about bundling as a single topic. Anyone want to clarify that or change that summary? Okay. So let's move on here. And Gustavo is next, and I believe he is with us remotely. Let me bring your slides up here. Okay. And is Gustavo with us? I'm not seeing you moving to the queue. So Francisco, I assume you're still with us. Is it, can you reach, oh, there he goes. Okay. All right, and let me open Gustavo. Okay. Gustavo, you should be able to speak.
Hey, hi.
We're
Guys,
not
can you
hearing
hear me?
you though. Oh, yes, now we can. Here, let me hand you the clicker so you can change your slides. No, just say next slide. Can you see the slides from where you are?
Yes.
Okay, so just say next slide when you want me to change them, and I'll do that for you.
Okay. So this presentation that you have on your screen is about transliteration and translation. But before going into that topic, I would like to talk about the TMCH functional specification. So my understanding is the following, right? So I published version 0 of the draft. The version 0 is because the working group name changed. Then I received some feedback from Roger and Patrick, and I published version 1 of the draft, which I believe addressed those concerns and feedback, basically. I think that version 1 is ready to be published, but it appears that there are still some concerns from Patrick. So if that's the case, I really would like to have like clear guidance of what needs to be updated, because maybe I misunderstood something. So I don't know if Patrick is on the room, or if Eugene, if you have more insight information on what we should update on the draft.
Yeah, thank you, Gustavo. Patrick's actually not in the room, but Jody's getting up to the mic.
Hi, Gustavo. This is Jody Kalker. If we're talking about the TMCH, and I think that one of our concerns as a registrar was the 48-hour window that is required, which as a registrar, I'm not sure how many other registrars are here, but it's very difficult to keep this 48-hour window for a GA. As you know, registrars will take thousands of pre-registrations for a domain name months in advance before GA starts. And we can't collect the claims at that time because the claim has to be accepted within 48 hours. That turns into a problem for the registrars that are trying to deal with the customers to try to get them to come in and accept a claim 48 hours when they've purchased the domain name possibly 6 months ago. So what happens is that the customer GA starts, we can't register the domain name for the customer because they haven't accepted the claim, and now customer comes in because another customer has accepted the claim. The original customer who didn't accept the claim but purchased it 6 months ago is now very upset because he didn't get his domain. So I think in the document it says that it has to be within the 48-hour window, but we haven't found anything in ICANN that references a 48-hour window. So I guess what we'd like to see is that 40-hour window just to be gone from a registrar standpoint, and a different process to be created around that. For instance, if a claim is created 6 months before the GA and the customer accepts it 6 months before the GA and it doesn't change when the GA happens, and we have them accepted it from 6 months ago, we should be able to send that same claim ID in. I mean, it hasn't changed in 6 months. That's what we're looking for. I guess when I read the document and it says 48 hours or based on any other policy, whose policy? Is it Ulrich's policy? He's shepherding documents. Can it be his policy? Or whose policy is it? Let's make it Ulrich's.
Yeah, well,
you want to get a beer later? So that's kind of our standpoint, I guess.
yeah, I understand, but well, in the case of GTLD space, obviously that refers to some ICANN policy, right? So the idea of saying the draft that is by default 40 hours of defined by policies, in the case of GTLDs, as I mentioned before, though before the ICANN need to decide. Because when I was working on this draft, I mean, there were a lot of arguments against having that 48 hours window, and someone wanted to be shorter, someone wanted to be larger. So I mean, that's something that is more about policy than a technical specification. So that's the reason why I made that change in the draft. So the idea is, on the ICANN world, I think there is going to be a PDP on the reviews of the RPM requirements. So my suggestion is maybe on that PDP they can touch on this topic and see if that needs to be changed. I mean, from the technical specification, I don't expect to be any change, because at the end of the day, if we say, hey, the claim notice is going to be 6 months, I mean, it will have 6 months of expiration, then we can just change that on the in the.
Well, the timeline isn't really 6 months. It's, if the claim hasn't changed, it doesn't matter what the timeline should be until that claim expires. I really want to get away from having a timeline on the claim besides when the claim expires. If the claim is updated at any time, sure, create a new TCN ID. But if it's never been updated, why continue to do that every 12 hours creating new TCN IDs? It seems like a bunch of processing that might not be needed. And my second point would be on the policy. It seems like the IETF has created policy for ICANN here, when I thought it was supposed to be the other way around. And maybe I'm wrong about that. And this newcomer thing, I'll play that card today.
Well, there is a question of whether there's a technical need for the timeline, and it would be appropriate for the IETF to speak to that. But I think the comment that you're making, the larger comment that you're making is does this timeline actually need to be in this document at all? If that's an external policy consideration, then it should not be in this document, Gustavo. I think it's the larger comment. Jody is nodding, so you may or may not see that, but yeah. Yeah. Okay, still in the queue here, go ahead.
Scott Hollenbeck. Gustavo, you started talking, you said something about, we renamed the document. I got some comments from Patrick, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I don't know what to do next. I mean, the way I see it, if you've updated the document and you have unresolved comments from another working group participant, the obligation is to address those comments before the document goes anyplace else. But in hearing this other conversation that just happened with Jody, some other radar is going off here in my brain. And the thing that I'm very worried about is if we are using the IETF process as a means of rubber stamping policy documents. All right. What I don't want to get into is a situation where there's a consensus policy in ICANN, and something happens where we try to now create a document using the IETF's standards track. All right. And I'm going to distinguish between standards track and informational here. Right. A standards track document, by definition, has to be open to the IETF's document creation, protocol creation process. And so if the working group process comes up with something that contradicts or otherwise is not in agreement with the ICANN policy, that puts us in a bad place. I certainly don't have any suggestions for how we get out of that bad place, but what I would suggest is that we try to find a way to not get there in the first place.
So thank you for that, Scott. And let me respond to you, Gustavo, with respect to Patrick and his comments. Patrick's comments were technical comments. I had thought Patrick was going to be here. Yeah, I had talked to him. I mean, I know he's at this meeting in general, and I had talked to him earlier about being here for this particular discussion. I'll have to get him to say something on the mailing list. The concern here is that the changes that you've made are not sufficient to meet the questions that he has there. And you rightfully, deserve an explicit, response to that. And I will ping Patrick here. I know he's here this week, and I'll see him again. In fact, I will see him tonight, in fact, so I'll be able to ping him directly and ask him to speak up on the list and make his comments known. So hopefully we can move that much forward. But this other discussion about the 48-hour timeline, unless, Gustavo, you're prepared to respond definitively to that, I think we need to take that discussion to the mailing list. Yeah. And I'm seeing some nods here in the room about taking that to the mailing list. So let's deal with that issue there too. Okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so moving on then, Gustavo. Keep going.
Yeah,
Next
so
topic.
now, next topic, transliteration and translation. So, slide please. So, what is the reason for this two draft that I published on the repository? So, as you may know, on the GTLD space, GTLD registries are required to follow ICANN consensus policies. Right now, there is a policy recommendation regarding transliteration and translation of data elements in the registry site. So the idea of these two drafts is to support this policy recommendation from the GNSO. So next slide, please. And the recommendations that require some technical support are the following. So the first recommendation is about identifying the language or script that was used by the register name holder when they put the information into the register, in this case, or reseller. And then optionally, registries, registrars, or even the reseller or even the registrant, they can provide transformation of that contact information. And with transformation, what it means translation or transliteration. So next slide, please. So in order to support this recommendation from the GNSO, we have two drafts, or I published two drafts. One draft is to support this on EPP, and the other one is to support this on RDAP. So next slide, please. And from the recommendations, basically, the data fields that require support for language tagging and could be transliterated or translated are the contact name, the organization, and the address. For the domain name, there is also a recommendation that language tagging should be supported. I have not included support for domain name on the drafts. So if you want to read the drafts, you will see support for contact name, organization, and the postal address information. So next slide. So the first draft is about EPP. Next slide. So the first thing that the drafts mention is that if you're going to use this extension, then it means that the address postal information in the localized and internationalized form represent the same information. I have gone through the contact mapping RC, and it's not explicit that if you use both, it means that they represent the same information. So in order to clarify that, that's the first thing that this draft is trying to clarify. So next slide, please. So in order to support this, this extension, the first thing that it does is to define which is the authoritative information. It could be the localized or the internationalized form. So maybe if the language that is being used by the registrant, if it can be represented in the internationalized form, for example, then maybe the internationalized form is going to be the authoritative information. If not, then the localized. So this extension allows you to choose which of the two address postal information in the contact object is going to be considered the authoritative information. And also it allows you to say who is the source of this information or transformation, because for example, if you say the localized is the authoritative information, then you can say with this extension, and the internationalized form is a translation from, let's say, Russian to English, for example. So those three attributes allows you to do that. So next slide. And in addition to those elements, I created a new object, which is named, well, that's on the next slide, sorry. So in addition to define which is the source of the information, you can define the language that was used for the name, organization, or the address postal information. The extension also supports that you can specify the name of the country in the specified language. And in the case that you are doing transliteration, the extension allows you to define what is the standard for the transliteration. There are several standards for doing transliteration, so you can define which one you're using there. Next slide. And this is an example of the first piece of information that you can represent using this extension. So in this case, for example, the authoritative information is in the localized form, is in Russian, in the Cyrillic script. And basically the extension is telling you that, the registrant is the authoritative source of information, that authoritative source of information is the localized form, and it tells you the language that was used by the registrant. And it also tells you the name of the country in the specified language, in this case in Russian. And then in this example, in the internationalized form of the contact object, we have a translation to English, and then you can see that the extension allows you to say that. And the source of that translation was the registrar. So in this case, the registrar is doing a translation from Russian to English and is showing that information in the internationalized form. So next slide, please.
Before we do that, we have a question in the queue here. Go ahead.
Sure.
Alex may offer one specific detailed question. Why do we need new fields for the country names when we are using ISO 3166 country abbreviations, which like map to, well, I suppose any language anyways? Why do we duplicate that information from the ISO list? We got the contact country code RU.
Yeah, I understand that question. So the thing is, if you are doing, for example, a transliteration from Russian to English, and you need to show this information in RDAP, you're going to show this information as the country name, right? So if the source of the transliteration is not providing that information, then the registry is going to be on the hook to provide that transliteration from Russian to English and to understand how to transliterate that. So basically, that's the idea. The idea is that the source of the transformation can tell you how that country name is going to be transliterated using the standard that they are using.
Okay. It seems like we want to make registries the Google Translate of all the address data in the world some way. But anyway, yeah.
Another question in the queue here, Gustavo. So go ahead.
Actually, well, it's already said, but I mean, I'm from Ukraine and we're used to languages, right? So let me ask you this. If, let's say, we're talking about Austria and language could be German and the country would be Austria, would it be any different, let's say, German name in Germany being transliterated, right? Let's say we're transliterating to, I don't know, Chinese, right? Or French. So again, I would repeat this argument. I don't see that the country is necessary in addition to language code.
Yeah, but probably that's a translation, right? Because
Okay,
I mean,
let's discuss it later.
yeah, in the case of German and French, for example, that would be the Latin script, I suppose.
We say German Austrian versus German in Deutschland or German in Switzerland. Would it be any different? If not, then only language code is necessary. Because Russian Russia is easier, right?
Yeah, but
Russian in Ukraine and Russian in Russia. Are these different?
Yeah, I understand, but probably what you're meant to is a translation, right? Because in that case, I don't think that there is a transliteration standard from those languages because they use the same script at the end, which is the Latin script, right? So yeah, if it's a translation, maybe the name is going to be the same. Yeah, that's for sure. But in this case, for example, it's not a, well, in this case, yeah, it's a translation in this example. But in the case of transliteration, it's way more complex because in the transliteration, for example, from Cyrillic script to Latin script, I mean, there is one standard, the ISO 9, but there could be other standards.
In Ukraine, we have 3 standards to transliterate names from Cyrillic to Latin, depending who you ask. But again, let's take it to this.
Yeah, and just a quick time check here, Gustavo. We really only have 15 minutes left. We've been kind of generous with our other activities here, letting some discussion go on. I see that you have 8 slides left, and we have one more presentation, which was supposed to get 20 minutes, but we're down to 15 for this meeting. So anything you can do to speed this along would be helpful, and clearly there's some discussion to take to the list.
Sure.
So back to you, Gustavo. I have
Slide,
now
please.
advanced the slide.
So in addition to being able to say, to provide information about the address postal information in the internationalized or localized form of the contact object, you can also provide new transformations of that information. So can you, next slide, please. And as with the other elements, you can provide a language that was used, in case of a transliteration, the standard that was used for transliteration, and you can also define the disclosed element for that new address postal information. So click next slide, please. I think it's going to be easier to see in the example. So this is an example of an additional postal address information. And in this case, this is a transliteration from Russian to English. And this is a transliteration of the information in the contact object. So in this case, we already defined that the localized form is the authoritative source of information that is in Russian. And this new, let's say, object or this new element, which is called additional postal information, is just a transliteration that was provided by the registrar, and is a transliteration, as I mentioned, from Russian to English. Next slide, please. And in RDAP,
So Gustavo, before you go ahead, quick comment from the queue, and let's
Hi,
try
very
to-
quickly, Rich Merdinger. You had a list of the entities that were actually performing the transformations. Did I read it right that you had reseller listed as one of the entities?
Yes.
Okay, that's something we can take to the list, but I don't think that they belong on that list. They're not a contracted party relative to the ICANN requirements. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. One more comment from the queue. Okay, go through the RDAP thing quickly, and then we have a comment when you're done with that preloaded.
So in RDAP, the idea is in the entity element, you're going to show the information that is authoritative. And then I define a new array, and the other array is called transformations. So you show the entity, and then you show the transformations for that entity. So can you go to the next slide, please? And as with EPP, you can say who is the source of the transformation, what is the type of the transformation, and the transliteration standard. Next. And this is an example. So you have the entities array, then you have an entity. In that entity, you have an address in Chinese, and then you have a transformations array. And the transformations array has, it contains more information. You can see the information as a JCard. And in the JCard, you can see that this is a translation from Chinese to English, and this transformation was performed by the registry. So I think it's pretty clear from the example, the idea on how to support this on RDAP.
Okay, question from the queue?
Yes, Andy Newton. I'm not exactly fond of the way this was solved in RDAP. It seems to me that it would be better to look at the actual JCard and see if we can solve it with inside the JCard, because the way this was intended was that people could take those JCards all by themselves and pull them out of RDAP. And the way you're solving this is if you're creating two different object classes and they're not connected. So someone could pull one JCard out and not get the other one. Sorry, yeah. And I believe this is an array, and so we just need to look at the JCard spec and see whether we can actually do this within the JCard, because you can have an array of different contact information in one JCard. So.
Okay, let's try and take that discussion to the list if we can, please.
Yes.
Okay, I don't see anything else in the queue. Any final comment, Gustavo, or can we move on?
Nope. Please review these drafts, provide information on the mailing list. And maybe for version 1, I would like to request adoption from the working group for these documents.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Gustavo. And pleased that Mirako was able to work. Over to you, Jody. You can use the clicker there if you like. Let me just get the show going here. And over to you. Yeah, bend over or...
Feels like a stand-up. I always wanted to be a rock star. We at GoDaddy, I'm Jody Kalker from GoDaddy. We've got 4 documents that we have out just as internet drafts right now, and I think I can get through them pretty quickly. Look at that. The first one is a validate. Basically, the problems that we have as a registrar is that when a customer comes into our system, they want to purchase a domain name. They finally get the guts up to try to buy it. We collect the contact information from them. We try to validate the contact information. The customer buys the domain. They get a confirmation email that says, congratulations on buying the domain. And then right after that, we try to register the domain name, and lo and behold, we've got bad contact information. I'm not sure if there's any other registrars here, but I'm wondering if they've experienced the same thing. We run through 100 of these a day where we have bad contact information. Usually what's happening is that registries, a lot of registries don't keep up on their contact validation, and so they're not sure what the rules are. When we ask for them, there's a disconnect between the rules that are actually being used and the rules that are in the documentation. So we find out about this after the fact, and then we try to implement those. And unfortunately, it's not a good customer experience. So what we developed was a validate RFC basically, and we're looking for feedback on it. Basically, we want to be able to send in 4 contacts when the domain is being purchased to the registry and say, can this be used? Can these contacts, the contact information, be used to register a domain name? And if they can't, send us an error message back so that we can have the customer fix the issue in the purchase path and not wait until after they've purchased it to find out they can't register the domain. So we've seen very, very detailed responses. Basically, one registry says if you have a North American phone number, you have a +1, so you got to have 10 digits. Don't send us any less than that. Where I don't think any other registry in the world does that. Another registry says if you have a Denmark phone number, you have to have 6 digits after that. No other registry does that. So those are the types of things we're looking for, is to be able to send that information in and find out if the domain can be registered with those contacts. One of the other things that we could do is that we could just create contacts when the customer is purchasing a domain and watch them fail, and then when they abandon the cart, we'll just orphan the contacts, but the registries will wind up with a bunch of orphan contacts. That won't be fun either. Domain Connect. Domain Connect is another of our drafts that we have. Basically, the problem that we have is that a customer will come in and they'll have a DNS provider. For instance, it'll be Cloudflare or it'll be a registrar, GoDaddy, and they would like to go to one of a service provider to provide either email or hosting for them. Well, the problem is that the domain is registered at a registrar, and the name servers are there. Most customers don't understand name servers. They barely understand registrars. So what we've developed basically is an API that would allow service providers such as Microsoft, Google, Wix, Squarespace, or anyone like that to be able to contact a DNS provider with a template that would be set up at the DNS provider that would allow them to set records within the DNS without having to change the name servers on the domain. I don't know if you've ever tried to explain anything to your parents, but trying to explain to my parents how to change name servers would be just a loss. Anyway, it would just provide a better customer support for the customer. They'd be able to purchase these services at other retailers basically, and then be able to set those back at the DNS providers. Am I doing good on time?
Actually, our meeting ended about a minute ago, but
Great.
Please keep going.
Another one is unavailable names. What we've asked for from registries is a list of unavailable names. We're not looking for a zone file. We're looking for all domain names that cannot be registered by a registrar. So, for instance, the internet's not 100% perfect. We're not going to be able to get to the registry every time we want to. There could be problems in our network. There could be problems at the registry. For instance, it's down for maintenance. There could be problems on the internet between the registrar and the registry. And what we would like is to have a daily published file of unavailable names so that when we try to sell a domain name to a customer, we know that it's going to be available or not. I know that this would be a daily list, and it's going to be old the minute it's published, but it would be better than what we have now. For instance, some registries have a list of reserved names that we don't know what they are. And we'd like to get a list of those so that we don't try to sell that to one customer over and over and over and over. Domain fees. As you know, a lot of GTLDs have come up with pricing now for domain names. So not everything's a standard fee for a domain. They have many tiers that exist for domain names. And what we would like to get is a daily file of domain names that are not a standard fee. What we need that for is so that, again, it's for the same reason we need the unavailable name, so that if we can't get to the registry, we're still going to know what the price of the domain name is. It's very fast for us to cache this and to be able to display that if we can't get to the registry. This also removes the problem of basically when tiers are going to be changed for a domain, instead of getting constant emails on that from 200 providers that, hey, tiers are changing, we're changing our prices, we would be able to download this list and we wouldn't need the email anymore, hopefully. And any questions, I guess?
One personal remark, if you're seeking standard track for the validate draft, be prepared for James Gold, and because you are introducing a new EPP command.
Oh.
And I know how difficult it is. But that's just a side note. Yeah, I've got one remark from Antoine, and it states, how does this relate to there's another draft DNS operator to RRR protocol, which basically does the same, and it has the relationship to domain connect. Yeah, the two ways.
Yep, it doesn't relate to it. Yeah, this is a little bit different in the fact that we're talking about OAuth and being able to contact the registry. I don't think that spec has anything to say about how you contact the registrar or the owner of the DNS.
Okay, I also see James Gould in the queue up there, so I'm going to put him behind.
JavaScript, yes, get ready.
But go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, so just quick comment. Jody, you talked about orphaning contacts. You do know you don't have to do that. There is a contact delete command.
I know.
Right. Okay. And then, all right, the snarky hat on too. You could also change your payment flow so that you register the domain first and then you collect the payment from the registrant. I like that. I get paid.
Yeah, and then we delete the domain name.
And ignore that comment.
Patrick Mevzek, just a comment. There is another draft, I think, from Gavin Brown on fees, which advised also to do a CSV, a daily CSV registry file. So did you have a look at that?
No, I didn't know that that was out there, actually.
Okay, I think it's quite old on internet time, like maybe 1 year ago or something like that, but maybe have a look at it.
Oh,
I did not see any discussion or traction on it, but it seems very close to.
okay.
Okay, let me insert James Gould into the queue here, please. And James, you should be able to speak. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about the extension item, but what I wanted to talk about was the unavailable domains. It just seems like the wrong solution to the problem. Maybe it'd be better if we talk about a check service of some sort that would not be directly tied to the registry or something. Because creating a stale file every day just doesn't seem like a good solution when you're dumping the entire registry database. That's all.
Yeah, I guess what we're looking for is quickness, because I know that for the cache that we have, we can't send 1,000 domain names to com and have it come back in milliseconds. And I mean like a millisecond. That's kind of what it's for.
Okay, Dmitry Kofmanik, just quick check. The unavailable sounds like a good idea, but do you mean these domains that have not been registered yet, but are just blocked? Like in UA, we do have a static list, which is like 7 or 10 domains that we never allowed to be registered.
Yeah, it would be any domain name that we cannot register.
So the zone file names plus the blocked names.
Yes. Well, well, not block names and names that are on server hold, if that's what you consider blocked too.
Correct.
Or
I
client
see.
hold.
Okay.
Yeah, anything that can't resolve on the internet.
Hi, Rich Merdinger. A few comments. One, at the GDD Summit, which is ICANN's Global Domains Division Summit that took place recently in Amsterdam, Gavin Brown did take up the charge for registries and registrars to put together some information regarding the fees file format. So that's something we should definitely look into and reconcile the two of them together. It wasn't a year ago, but it's recently been revitalized. Two, it does seem to me that it would be much more efficient for us to be able to, in real time, be able to determine a lot of the information that is being supplied in both of these file formats. However, it is a pragmatic reality that registries are not always available. Real-time queries do take longer than local queries. Pre-processing can't occur if you're trying to do bulk operations against foreign real-time systems, et cetera. So while from a purely technical standpoint, it seems like yesterday's solution, and we would just want to have real-life connectivity, there are pragmatic uses for this in operation today. And what we're looking to do is codify the format so we don't have many different organizations trying to implement many different formats in a many-to-many world. Thank you.
Yeah, Michael Holloway from Comlada. First of all, plus one to both of you on most of these. I just wanted to add a point on the validate extension that, and I just did a quick search through the draft. So, there doesn't seem to be any association with a domain name or a TLD in there, and in a multi-TLD platform, that might need to be added in case TLDs have different restrictions.
Yep.
That's all.
I mean, that's what we're looking for, is what's wrong with it. You know, I mean, we're not sold on the validate, whatever it is, call it whatever you want. I mean, we just want something like this. So that we're just looking for feedback on that. You know, where's the best place for it? We looked at putting it into the check command, but that didn't seem right because I didn't think registries would want to do that. Put it into the contact command, but the contact command doesn't take 4 contacts; it only takes 1. We need to send all 4. So we went round and round about this. So just looking for feedback. I mean, we're not married to validate by any means.
Okay, thank you, Jody. And I see that the queue is empty here. So I already took a slide off the screen here, but the action there from Jody on his last slide was obviously they're looking for review of these documents and ultimately for consideration by the working group as to whether or not these could be working group documents. So please do take a look at them and consider, where they stand from your point of view as far as being working group documents is concerned or not. And is this a next topic, or are you still on that topic? Next topic. Okay. So that brings us back to our agenda. And although officially our meeting time ended just a few minutes ago, we do have any other business and we have somebody at the queue. So please go ahead.
Alex Mayova, just a general comment to this working group. I think we are seeing that we are getting in a lot of quite complicated work. We are getting in a lot of quite extensive documents, and it doesn't seem like we get enough reviewers. Yeah, that's a problem. I mean, I know that the industry is small. Yeah, it's not like the quick off is 400 people. But I'm really afraid that we cannot generate enough review on the documents that we have so that they are of adequate quality. Let me put it that way. Yeah, that's a little bit of concern. I don't have a strategy to solve that because I can't force any of my registrars to sit here. But it's a concern for me. Yeah.
So thank you for that. I mean, I'll speak both as chair and personally, I share that concern very much. And I know that our area directors, both our previous area director and the new one that we have now, shared the same concern. This unfortunately, as important as this work is, and there are some of us in here who know how important some of this stuff is, there just aren't enough people who are directly engaged. So we all have a responsibility, reach out to your friends every once in a while when a document is sort of getting close and see if you can't run it past someone, even if they're not on the mailing list or part of the working group. You can push something onto somebody who you think might say something relevant, and then, say on the list that, you had this person look at it and they were okay with it or not, as the case may be. That's the only strategy that I've come up with other than that. I mean, we are what we are and we are who we are. And we'll always try we try with the model to reach out to get 5 reviewers, but if we can at least get 3 different people that appear to be independent, then we'll take that and go forward as best we can. So, okay, a couple people from the queue, and then we really do have to end up here.
Very quickly, there is something called the Domain Name Association. It has a registrar operations group, and I will be incenting people within that group to try to engage. I think
Excellent.
We should all do that with organizations that we know, because we might be force multipliers.
Yes. And let me talk to you a little bit after this is all over too. Let me do that. So please go ahead.
Yeah, Michael Holloway from Comlada again. Just a quick question / comment. A number of other working groups seem to have GitHub accounts to share all of the drafts, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. Is there any particular reason for it? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, and with that, no one else in the queue. I don't have any other business, so we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone, and appreciate all the remote reviewers, too. Thank you for hanging out with us.